Welcome. This is the Red Hook Town Board meeting of Tuesday, December 13th. Would you be kind enough to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Patrick has up on the screen for the folks at home what we'll be discussing tonight, tonight's agenda. We start off, it's the first meeting of the month, with both the supervisor's report and the town clerk's report, in addition to any announcements and public comments. For the agenda items, we continue our discussion on potential solutions for some drainage issues in the Forest Park development. Second up is we're going back out to bid for those electric vans after the contractor canceled our last contract. We're back out there again, and hopefully we'll have this solved within the next few months. We are discussing the PANDA agreement, very important to look forward with that and to provide them with the necessary resources now that we have signed a spectrum renewal. We're also going to approve a performance bond as it relates to Sycamore Estates development. We'll be talking very briefly about Association of Towns and what's going to be discussed there in February, a little bit of reorg, and then department and committee reports. Okay. With that being said, Patrick, could we scroll down and just go through our announcements? The Tivoli Free Library has a Toy for Tots drive. They're accepting donations through Tuesday, December 20th, and that's at the library itself. The VFW, next up, having many events. Christmas in the Village, December 17th, 12 to 3 p.m. at the post itself. And then finally, Christmas Tree Festival organized by Christ Church, Episcopal Church here in the village as well, and that lasts from the 10th through the 31st. Speaking of Christmas trees and lights, thank you to the folks at the Chamber doing once again that beautiful display of tractors that are lit up throughout the community. Next up, here's our schedule, holiday schedule for the 2023 year. Okay, moving right along into the supervisor's report. Patrick, if you'd be so kind as to, yep, that's the page. Very good. We started, this is for the period ending November 30th, 2022. Started the year, if you could zoom in just a little bit, Patrick, with an opening balance of $9,509,000, receipts of $320,000, disbursements of $737,000, with a remaining balance of just over $9,092,000. In your packet, scroll down, you'll see you have the variance reports as always. I hope you've had a chance to take a look at that. And our bookkeeper has prepared the November budget adjustments. I would like to add to that one other budget adjustment, and that would be to move from the A contingency fund, appropriate for the capital fund the amount of $37,000, and that is to replace our pump stations here at the campus. Now that we know that we can get the state contract, we hope to be able to accomplish that project in just the next few weeks. So with that proposal, are there any questions about the budget adjustments or the supervisor's report? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to accept.
Second.
So moved.
Okay, that works too. It's out of order, but it works.
All right.
Aye.
Julia, thank you very much. Also including for you, but not for this month, but next month, as always, each year we have to review the available healthcare benefit packages and what works best for both the municipality and for the employees. And you have that. If you'd be kind enough to look over that over the course of the holidays, and come January we'll need to select a plan again for our employees. All right. We also have our clerk's report. Deanna, if you'd be kind enough to read that.
Town clerk's report for the period of November 1st, 2022 to November 30th, 2022. Total local shares remitted to the supervisor, $5,125.09. Amount paid to New York State Agriculture and Markets for the Spay-Neuter Program, $38. Amount paid to New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, $22.50. Amount paid to New York State Environmental Conservation for hunting and fishing licenses, $690.91. Total state, county, and local revenues, $5,876.50. And hereby certified vouchers numbered 29765 to 29907 processed in the month of November 2022 are an accurate reporting of the abstracts approved for payment by the town board.
Very good. Thank you very much, Deanna. Is there a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Thank you, Julia. Second?
I'll second
All right. All in favor, Jacob?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Very good. Okay, public comments at this time. Is there anybody who would like to make any public comments before we start on the agenda items? No? Okay. Very good. And we do have some written comments as well for our first item on the agenda. And the first item is continued discussion of potential solutions for drainage issues at the Forest Park development. Ryan Morrison from Ty and Bond is here to talk to us again and hopefully help us advance the ball down the field, if you will.
Sure.
Robert, before we start, could I just ask, we're not hoping to take a decision today, right? This
We're
is just
not.
further discussion.
Further discussion, yeah.
Robert, can you see if you can make that a little bigger?
Okay, Patrick, could you zoom in just a little? What?
That's really the only way I can zoom in on their PDF viewer.
Okay.
My question, Robert, was there anybody who was here to comment on this specifically, that we were going to open it up at another time, or are we just going to do a discussion about the?
Well, I think we only have a
Okay.
couple people here, so we could open that up.
Okay.
If that's all right with you, Ryan?
Sure, I'll go
They can
first.
Contribute if they're residents?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So I believe the last time I spoke to the board about the Forest Park drainage project was in September of this year. At that time, we had provided a draft report to the board to kind of consider what our findings were. At that time, the board provided us some feedback about what they thought about the report, a couple small revisions they'd like us to make, as well as asking us to put together kind of a prioritization summary. A couple of the projects were larger size projects for the town to take on and all in one shot. So they wanted to look at, if we broke those larger projects up into smaller projects, how could we do that to make it more affordable for the town? We submitted a revised report in October of this year. Along with that, we sent an email that was like, here's how we break out those major projects. For kind of a summary for the board, it's been a little bit since we discussed this project. Basically, we did a hydrologic and hydraulic study of the community, and we broke out the repairs for this community into a couple of different subsections. One was basic repairs that needed to be done within the community, or that could be done within the community. These wouldn't affect areas that were seeing ponding issues or nuisance flooding issues. These were things where we saw catch basins that were undersized, that didn't meet highway standards, or catch basins that looked like they should just be replaced. And so that was priority number one on our prioritization schedule. The second priority we did was we decided to break out the larger improvements into two different improvement schedules. One would be collection improvements, and one would be upsizing of piping for flooding condition improvements. And we wanted to front load the collection improvements that we did for the community, because the feedback we received from the community members was not that during a 25-year storm, the rain's not going away fast enough. It was more that we're getting ponding in the road during normal storm events or storm over snow events, and it doesn't have anywhere to go. I can't get it off the road, or it's sitting in my driveway apron. Other comments we received were, I pumped my basement out into my front yard, but my yard's frozen, so it doesn't take on water, makes its way to the roadway, and now I have to deal with it down there. We also got similar comments from the highway department, who's noticing when residents are pumping onto the front lawn, they're seeing that ice up in winter time. In summertime, it's not a problem because the ground is thawed, the ground tends to take more water, but in that winter condition, it tends to flow towards the road, and that can create an icing condition which gets the town out there to salt more often. So in our prioritization schedule, we tried to front load those collection items. So 1 was make repairs, 2 was make collection improvements on Shady Lane was our second priority. We felt like of all the feedback we received from the community, Shady Lane seemed to have the most common issues. It was also one of the shorter roads. Apple Tree Drive is a little bit longer, may take the town a little bit more money to get that funding together, so we felt like Shady Lane could be done quicker. And so we made that the number 2 priority. Number 3 was the collection on Apple Tree Drive. We felt like that area could be fixed for not a ton of money, it'd be more than Shady Lane, but it would give us a little bit more time to put those plans together. And then for 4 and 5, we would do those downstream improvements we talked about, where there was pipes that didn't pass the 10-year storm or the 25-year storm. Today's highway standards, Town of Red Hook highway standards, is for the 25-year storm. So we would make recommendation to make those enlargement of pipes up for the 25-year storm as later down the road after we fix the collection issue that is affecting the residents and the safety of the road. Since we've made that recommendation to the town, we have received some feedback from some community members. Some of the feedback we received from community members includes some concerns about the collection systems we've talked about on those roads. So we had made recommendations for putting grass line swales on either side of the roadway. And the reason we did that was for a couple of reasons. One, it's pretty cost effective. When you have to trench pipe through roadways, there's obviously roadway repair, shutting down the road, traffic management. If it's in the grass on the side of the roads, other than scraping out with an excavator, reseeding, doing some erosion and sediment control, they can be fairly cheap options. The other reason we picked roadside swales as our initial recommendation was that it provides an opportunity for those folks that need to discharge off their lawn a continuous collection point so that they're not trying to find a single catch basin in the road. So if that person has to discharge on their front lawn, it can meander its way through the front lawn down into the grass line swale and into the drainage system. So I don't have to find a single catch basin along that roadway. The other reason is there's a couple of locations along both Apple Tree and Shady Lane where the houses and the yards are higher. So this grassline swale creates kind of a barrier, if you will, for stormwater trying to run off the roadways down onto the roadway. And obviously we're trying to keep water from running onto the roadway because that creates a collection issue later on. Final piece for that is because Shady and Apple Tree Lane are both so level or so flat, it's tough to get water to drain to catch basins. So you'll notice in the parking lot out there, there's real low spots in the parking lot where we can get water to run. Usually minimum slopes around 2% without creating a ponding issue on pavement. And Shady Lane is almost appears by eye to be flat, like a 1% slope across it. We were afraid that if we put a couple of catch basins sporadically across the road, we wouldn't be able to get water to flow to it. So if we put these swales alongside of it, we would be able to get the water to flow perpendicular to the road to the swale, and then we'd be able to pitch the swale in order to drain the road. Since that time, the residents have had a couple of, have brought a couple of things to our attention that I think we need to consider. One is there's a water line in that roadway. Obviously, we don't want to affect that water line, and some of our swales may be close to that. I personally don't know the location. A couple of residents have given me what they believe to be the location. So I think that's something certainly we need to consider for not only interfering with the utility, but also as far as freezing, frost thaw conditions, we want to make sure we're not having an effect there. Also, there's a couple of utility poles that are along the side of the roadway that may conflict with where our locations of our swales were proposed. And so we want to make sure that we're going to be able to make our way around them, whether that's with pipe or whatever else we need to do there. And then, of course, depth of swale. A couple of the residents have come up with concerns about how deep is this swale, how does this affect, improvements along the side of the road, whether that be within the public right-of-way or on private land. Obviously, none of our recommendations were to work outside the right-of-way, but that's over time. Usually private improvements kind of make their way towards the right-of-way, and so they were concerned about what disturbances we would create there. And so given that, all of that information, our recommendation was to, for the town to get a survey of Shady Lane so that we understand where that right-of-way falls within where that road falls within the right-of-way, and how much space we have on either side to make it, to make those grassline swales. It would also give us an opportunity to entertain the catch basin and piped drainage system and understand how much pitch we have across Shady Lane and whether we can make something like that work. And so that would be our recommendation to the town today.
I mean, that makes sense to me. As a starting point, we need to have the information before we can make an intelligent decision.
Sure.
And obviously, surveying is critical. Any thoughts, board members? Okay. And we'll continue to consider the options there while you're working on that. You'll put together a task order for us. And
Sure, I think we can get work on getting a surveyor out there. I know right now it's usually a pretty busy time for those guys who are trying to close out the year. So we'll get somebody lined up, and then we'll work on putting a task order for continued design development of the project.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Would you like to say something? Sure.
I'm from Forest Park, I live on Shady Lane.
Would you just mind coming up and just giving your name for the record? You don't even have to give your address.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Gerard Cadeau, and I live on Shady Lane.
That's right.
And I've talked to 6 of the households on Shady Lane and 1 person who lives on Birchwood Drive. In the past, I've talked to 60 households, and no one likes the grass swale solution. And Ron Spolverino's note to you kind of outlines why it isn't going to work when we have freezing weather. And it's just unsightly. It's going to be a ponding issue for insects and mosquitoes in the summer. And it's going to totally change the nature of the street just because the digging is going to get rid of the 3 remaining large oak trees on the street. And also the statement in the plan that we can't pump water to the street, that has been the solution since 1960. Okay, so, and we can't pump water to our backyards because all of us have septic systems on quarter-acre lots, and the water in the winter causes the system to malfunction. And it causes the system to fail faster, and several households will face dire economic circumstances if they have to replace their system in the winter. Plus, it's almost impossible to do a good job in the winter. And more systems are failing. Raised bed systems are being installed as repairs. They don't always go through the whole process of getting an engineer and meeting the town and the health requirements for septic systems. My system, which was proposed, started out at $15,000, and I directed my engineer that it had to meet all the standards, and it ended up costing $35,000 because it had to be raised 2 feet higher, and 2 feet more fill for an area 70 by 100 feet cost $20,000. So, and most of the families cannot afford that kind of septic system. It's just not going to work. The yards are too small, and that's why we have to pump our water out front. And we need, in a lot of communities, you're allowed to pump the water through pipes directly into the drain lines in the street, and we need that kind of service. Plus, the concept plan, the master plan for an area with our density, says we should have municipal sewage and municipal water supply. That is the goal of that plan. And most of our lots are under ½ an acre. And plus, there is also studies, because of our proximity to the Hudson River, and we're in that watershed, we should have municipal sewage. And also, there is a biology professor in the neighborhood who has taken samples of the standing water in these supposed implied easements, and the water has enough fecal coliform in it to be dangerous. He's told his kids, don't get it on your skin and don't play in it. So this is not a solution that's been proposed. I'm really glad that the study has brought out the complexity of what's needed to be done. But we're not happy with the solution. I haven't had time to talk to the other 50-plus families I've talked to. It's just hard to make it up and down the street to everybody and catch everybody at home. So, but that's what I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. You know, and one of the options for the folks at home, you know, something like a municipal sewer, which the village is just wrapping up with, that's called a special benefit assessment district. And so the way that works is you can create a district, whether it's water or sewer, even drainage, create a district. Let's say all of Forest Park can become a drainage district. But the costs that are borne for that district are by the users. So, for example...
Yeah, I know, but the town, obviously, this system that's being put in place in the village is getting millions, if not tens of millions of dollars from the federal government.
Sure, sure.
We deserve the same kind of financial support.
Sure,
because we're part of this, supposedly, we're part of this concept plan. We're prime residential area for our density and even higher densities.
Sure, sure. And the comprehensive plan, which was adopted back in the 90s, well after your development was built. You may have seen years ago there was a study conducted by Dutchess County which said if residential homes were to have individual septic systems, they require, and I believe it was 5.3 acres. That's the amount of space that should be provided for that type of system. So it's a real challenge, as you...
I agree, it's a real challenge.
As you
the
say.
whole thing is a challenge.
So it's about getting the water away from the homes, from the backyards, the front yards, and certainly from the roadways, so that it can be safe for travelers. You know, this is not unusual, I will say. You know, and Teresa certainly is much more experienced and knowledgeable about this topic than I am as the highway superintendent. But it's not atypical of what we see in certain areas throughout the township, and in particular the ones that are more densely developed. And as for grant opportunities, I'm assuming that you and your firm will look into what's available.
Yep.
This is unusual for communities to take a look at these situations and try and retrofit to bring them up to more modern day standards. But important that we try to address what I know is a very real issue, and I know that this issue, as you stated, has been around for a very long time, because actually one of our employees, I think, maybe lived even in your house back in 1973.
Yeah, yes.
And so I went into his office and asked, you know, what was it like back, you know, on Shady Lane then, and reported that, yeah, I mean, the basement was full of water all the time back in 1973. So the development standards back then, obviously we now know were not sufficient for the type of climate that we're experiencing, even more so today. So Ryan, any more thoughts on this as we continue to advance this to some type of proposal?
Oh, I think we'll get the survey, will give us a better idea of where we think we can go with it, and then obviously we'll keep our eye out on any grant opportunities for helping to fund this project as we move forward.
Very good.
I'd just like to say one more thing. Sure. I don't expect this to happen quickly because of the issues that Ryan has pointed out, and I don't think it would be good to throw a ton of money at a problem without doing it step by step. It's just a complex problem, and it's going to take many years to fix it. It's not going to happen overnight, so I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Very good. Anyone else? All right. That said, Ryan, thank you very much. We look forward to getting that task order.
Sure.
And I'm sure we'll be asking you to move it along.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and thank you all for joining us. All right, very good. We're now on agenda item number 2. Electric vans. For those of you who have been following along, we received a federal grant. I can't believe I'm saying this, back in 2017, 2018, sometime in that time period. We went out to bid, we got no bids to build the 2 vans. These vans are designed, by the way, to help transport people with physical challenges. It's a federal grant called Enhanced Mobility. You can imagine the folks who live or work at the Commons, for example, who want to get over to the community center where there's a lot of programming, by the way, that the town supports. And so we received a very substantial grant, and the state also has matching funding that it appropriates each and every year for electric transportation. And we went out to bid, we were in contract, COVID hit, supply chain issues, and then the contractor eventually, after asking for a couple of extensions, canceled the contract. So here we are again, going out to bid. We feel more hopeful now because there are vendors actually building these. And so we have tonight a resolution to do just that, which is to solicit public bids for 2 electric vans regarding enhanced mobility. Deanna, what number would this be, please?
82.
82, thank you. It's dated December 13th, 2022, and we're looking for these bids to be returned on January 4th. Lots of instructions, so on and so forth. I think there were only minor changes.
As I said, are we including all the materials that are here? Assuming Dan's name's in here a few times.
There's a couple of typos there. Let's make sure we have the right town clerk to return to on the contracts.
Oh, that in the contract?
Yeah.
We didn't update the contract,
5.
yeah.
Yeah, well, the contract will be updated with any.
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
Wait, you're looking at the contract? Or are you talking about the bid sheet?
The notice of invitation for sealed bids has Sue's name and not Deanna's name.
Well, I'm saying Deanna. What are you looking at?
Oh, well,
Mine says Deanna. Do you have the right document?
So at the bottom, does it say,
just at the bottom.
I have 2 electric vans for enhanced mobility 2020?
Nope.
No? Maybe
You
I
have the wrong documents.
Well, we have the wrong name.
No, but you have the wrong documents.
Yeah.
This is 2022.
Yeah.
No.
Ours say
look at-
2020.
Look at your documents.
No, we have it.
No,
No.
behind.
You mean the contract?
Yes, please. Go to the page, go to the bottom page.
Yeah.
Those aren't big. This is not.
That's the old one.
distribution.
All right, you
You
wanna,
have- yes.
can we make,
I will.
Patrick, can you make some copies of this? We have the old contracting.
I don't know that we need copies. I think that if it's substantially the same, we're just updating the clerk's name. I don't think we need printed copies for
Well,
us.
maybe-
You'll need them on the desk.
There's a few things
You know the
that,
desk?
Need
yeah.
them on the desk.
Can email it to me?
Should I make the copies? I was gonna say, I can make the copies of the, I don't think we need a copy of the DOT documents, because those are all the same, so, but I'll give them the front part to redo, how about that?
Just the
Right?
front part.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we skip on?
Sorry about that.
Patrick, if you could do
Just go to the next
4
agenda.
copies, and just go on the next agenda item, the Panda grant, please.
Because there were some changes in the specs, so.
Thanks, Chris. All right, the Panda agreement, okay. So we've got our contract with Spectrum. And we now need to take the next step, which is to update our intermunicipal agreement with 35 municipalities, or 4 colleagues. I was just at the Village of Rhinebeck a couple of hours ago, talking to them about the Spectrum contract, and we also mentioned the need to update this IMA. It reflects the changes in the subscribers, the allocation. You'll also note that it takes into account a new PANDA budget. We have not increased the PANDA budget for 6 or 7 years now. Included in the proposed update budget is some additional features, closed captioning, for example, video on demand cloud service, also a reservation for the next round of equipment after we receive the funding from Spectrum for the new server and other equipment so they can get back online hopefully very soon in the next couple months or so. And so what we're doing for this IMA is updating it, authorizing a rider. Are there any questions that you have? This is a we've got a 3-year on this, 3-year term. The original agreement dating back to 2011. This is resolution number 83. Are there any questions, folks? All right. I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Any further discussion? All in favor? Julia?
Aye.
Bill Hamel?
Aye.
Thank you very much. One more ministerial thing. Resolution to approve the performance bond Sycamore Estates. That's agenda item number 4.
And Robert, I would just note that if you read the text of the resolution, we have an alternative, either a security bond or given the amount, bank
Okay.
check for a cash deposit. Because
Okay.
with a smaller number, that's not atypical, right?
Right.
We've accepted that before, so that's what the resolution allows.
The cost of getting a bond doesn't make it worthwhile in
Right.
some cases. Yeah.
Right, for a smaller amount.
More coming.
Very good. Okay, so this is resolution number 84. And it's regarding acceptance of security for completion of specified improvements, and this is for a easement and driveway maintenance agreement on, I believe it's Yancey. And I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Jacob?
Aye.
Julia?
Aye.
That is included. Okay, number 5, Association of Towns. For the folks at home, your elected officials all go to school, believe it or not. It may not always appear that way to you, but we do. We get continuing education. Thank you, Patrick. Each year, representatives from the townships throughout New York State convene in New York City. There are a lot of courses, classes, and more importantly, opportunities to ask questions that you have of state agencies. And so I send around to you, or you probably receive directly from them, and Ann printed out also the tentative agenda for this upcoming year. So give it some thought whether or not you'll be able to attend, and we can take a look at who will be going to represent the township in February. It's always President's Weekend, or typically has been. Any questions on that topic, folks? No? Julia, might be good for you. I don't think you've been to one yet, right?
No, I went to the newly elected officials training last year.
Not to this. So this is much more broad and comprehensive, and you might find it interesting. It's helpful. Okay. Let's jump back, shall we? Now that you have in front of you. The only tweaks to the specs on this was range, minimum range of 130 miles an hour on a charge for the vans. They-
130 miles?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 130 miles. And these are level 3 fast charging compliant, what we'll be seeking. And as you know, the construction has already begun on the fast charger. We hope to have that complete in January.
And was changed to 2023 model year.
Yeah. And these are Ford, retrofit Ford, Ford Core.
9-passenger.
9-passenger. There's a wheelchair lift for the folks at home. If you haven't followed this from earlier, there's a wheelchair lift in the back of both of these vehicles. And so it accommodates folks who need that. All right, that was resolution number 82, wasn't it? Okay. Now that we've got the one with the minor edits, I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Julia, by note. Any further discussion? All in favor, Bill Hamel?
Aye.
Jacob Testa?
Aye.
Very good, thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. Reorg originally was going to be on the schedule for tonight. I did want to Patrick, did we get in our packets the committee list, the volunteer list? Did that end up going in the packets?
We never looked at that packets.
What's that?
No, that didn't.
That didn't go.
Is that an appointment list?
Just the updated list of the members of the committee.
The committee list on the reorg. Deanna, if you could go grab one of those for a second, are we doing any housing committee reorg tonight?
I mean, I think we can wait until January.
To January?
So we can hold
Okay.
off on this.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will say we've had 2 meetings of the committee so far, an introductory meeting at the beginning of November and then a second meeting at the end of November, and that's my law.
Great.
Yeah, a lot of excitement, a lot of ideas, a lot of energy,
Important.
which is good.
Important issue, you know. Thank you very much. So we do have some letters of interest. One of the things we need to do, by the way, is assessment review board. I noticed when I received the form from the county, we had an expiration of term. This is an off-cycle thing, the Board of Assessment Review. And Steve Appenzeller, who just joined, he was filling the term, 5-year term, ended September of 22. So I would like to make a motion that we reappoint him for a term, a period to end September of 27. We'll need to have them in place at the beginning of the year. They also receive training. Would somebody like to second that reappointment for Steve Appenzeller?
Can I just have to ask a question why it's offset? Why it doesn't line up with?
The state law.
Okay,
Yeah.
agree. Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you very much. That's my default answer too, by the way, state law. No,
We have
it is.
to.
It's different terms. And I assume that's related to the calendar, that it would be
Assessment
difficult.
calendar, probably.
Yeah. It's easier and better to do it that way. Okay, so we'll conclude reorganization, and now we're at department and committee reports. Department report, Teresa, would you like to make a department report tonight, or do we have
Not
something?
today,
Not
thank
tonight?
you.
Okay. All right, we have tree preservation committee. Jacob, you.
Yep, so the report from November 15th. The fall tree planting, we had 15 trees that were planted at Rec Park West and one up in Upper Red Hook. And they've been watered by committee members 3 times. So thank them for the work on that. 3 members of the committee attended an event hosted by the Community and Sustainability Committee. The committee completed the first of 4 continuing education courses. This one was about GIS, Geographic Information Systems. Remaining topics include proper tree planting techniques, invasive pests, and American chestnut story. Committee webpage has been updated with a press release, new tree list, and new photos. Remaining projects for the year include tree removal on Pitcher Lane and ordering books for the school program, which I saw it already happened from our vouchers, so that's good to see. And the committee's not meeting in December, so that's everything we have. Thank you for the work throughout the year, Tree Preservation Commission.
Yeah, you do a great job. Do we know what the tree removal is on Pitcher Lane? Is it
I don't know the
trees,
specific
ash,
one.
or-
Yeah.
All right. Police Department report, Bill Hamill.
All right, this is for October. We have 2. We have October and November.
All right.
A little out of order in the package, but.
That's all right.
So in October, the police department is entered into an agreement that they are now doing Tivoli as well, the village of Tivoli. There were a total of 114 incidents in the town, and 29 Tivoli. They made 19 tickets, traffic summonses, and they made 3 arrests. And at the last meeting, there was a question that I followed up with PD on about the school resource officer. It seemed like there were a number of incidents at the school, and it shows in November as well. What that is they're really not incidents. It's the way that they log the presence of a police officer taking a shift at the school. There was one incident in September, which was a medical, but all the remaining ones were as they show up to do their shift there. It's just the way that their system tracks these, and they're looking at a way to try to shift that so it doesn't look like there's a lot of activity at the school right now. That's what they're stuck with. And then in November, there were 113 incidents in the town, 14 Tivoli. They gave 16 tickets and made 1 arrest. I do want to point out for the public, they have been making a lot of welfare checks and medical calls since when you call 911, they're often the closest and the fastest to respond to an incident. And they all are trained in first aid and CPR, and they have defibrillators in their cars. So it's an excellent service that they provide to the town and the village, and also the village of Tivoli. But sometimes it looks heavy, but that's because they happen to be the first ones. Often they get there before an ambulance call.
Okay.
So yeah, they were a little out of order, or they're duplicated in our package. So I just jumped in to have that.
Very good. Okay. Recreation Commission. Christina is not here to do Recreation Commission. I could summarize. Here's a quick summary. The park is closed. The good news is the skate park equipment came and is installed. So for those of you who were waiting, the timing was perfect. It was installed and then it snowed, so you couldn't use it. But we're very happy to report that things have gone well. John seems to be happy with the installation. Obviously, there's a little bit of work they need to do to repair some grass as they had to take the heavy equipment down there. But for those of you who were excited about the expansion, it will be available to you in the spring when the park reopens. We're waiting on some picnic tables and some other equipment. Talks about some of the equipment, aging equipment that we're going to need to consider to replace. Some repair work and upgrading to the pavilion ceiling. Some great work is done there, it looks terrific. And summer programs, some discussion there, we're excited about that as well. He mentions the trails. I don't know, do we have a separate Greenway and Trails report for tonight? No. Looking at some opportunities to apply for some grants for boardwalk as far as the build out for the Winnicke Saltkill trails, and installing some more lead dispensers throughout the trail system. John also mentions in this, though it's not necessarily recreation, that a lot of work has begun in St. Margaret's to repair the walls there. Our employees are talented and able to do a lot of that plaster work, so we've been doing that as we speak. I think that's primarily the highlights of the report.
Robert, I just had one note. I noticed that there was some email back and forth regarding mowing practices at Rec Park West and the potential in the future to designate some areas for pollinator habitat. I just think that would be a conversation that I'd be interested in exploring further.
Yep. And there's an area that was designated as part of the plan to be a natural area over there. If I could orientate you towards Aspinwall on the western north end of the entrance there. So that would be an ideal spot. So yeah, that's all. They're trying to figure out how to accommodate that and not let it go, so that it gets overwhelmed. Because once it gets ahead of you.
Well, it depends what you choose to allocate for, right? You know, how much of it is maintained as lawn versus how much you allow to be a more natural habitat.
Exactly. And I think the practices on a 2 times a brush hog accommodates a lot of those pollinators. From what I understand, but yeah, so that'd be good. Take it. All right. What else do we have? Do we have any more reports? We do. The exciting dog report.
Yeah, we got 2 because October's came in late.
Okay.
So October was a light month. There was only 1 loose dog and 1 cat. And as a reminder for the public, most of these cats reports are feral cats because according to the Dutchess County SPCA, there are approximately 20,000 feral cats in the county.
Wow.
And they have a project to spay and neuter them, but it's an issue. And these cats that they respond to generally are in the feral cat variety. And then in November, they had 1 loose dog. They had a nuisance dog, which is a barker, 2 cats, and a wildlife, which could have been a deer or a raccoon or a squirrel, believe it or not, or a chipmunk. So it was also light, and I'm happy that for the year, at least to date, we only had a few dangerous dog-related incidences. That was back in April. Keep it that way, that would be terrific.
Good. Wow. It is 8:25, folks. We are going to entertain a motion to go into attorney-client session. But before we do so, I would like to wish everybody a healthy and a happy holiday. I know that everybody is trying to stay healthy so that they can visit their family and enjoy their time. So we wish you the best of luck. And we'll see you, this will be, unless there's a special meeting, this will be our last meeting of December. We'll see you again back here January 12th, I believe it is. Good night, everyone. Thanks very much. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to go into attorney-client. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.